If the Philadelphia Eagles trade A.J. Brown, let's say hypothetically we do move on from A.J. Brown, there is two wide receivers in this draft that I think the Eagles should consider drafting. So we know the A.J. Brown rumors. We know what's happening in Philadelphia. Let's say, for example, that A.J. Brown wants out of Philadelphia. Would the Eagles consider drafting a wide receiver in the first round? Now we all know that Jeremiah Smith is a generational talent in 2027. But let's say the Eagles say, you know what? We want to draft a wide receiver in the first round to pair up with Devontae Smith. And it's interesting that the Eagles would do something like this, where they might go after a wide receiver if they do trade A.J. Brown. Would they go after Cordell Tate at Ohio State? And I like his elite route running. I think that this kid has every tool you want in a receiver. Goes up and get the 50-50 balls. He would be a weapon for the Philadelphia Eagles. You pair him with Devontae Smith, you definitely can consider, a replacement for A.J. Brown. Now, we know A.J. Brown's a monster. We know that the guy is a stud. And I'm not all for trading A.J. Brown just because, right? I think that you need to get a lot back from him. I said it along, you need at least a first-round pick. But let's say A.J. Brown is not happy. You don't want to force a guy that's not happy being in Philadelphia. And let's say A.J. Brown doesn't want to be here, then you got to move on from him. Whether it's New England or Baltimore or some other team, if they want to take him, hey, we wish him nothing but the best. But let's say the Eagles do trade A.J. Brown. Do the Philadelphia Eagles go after wide receiver? I do think it's a possibility, right? There's no one in free agency that I want to go after. Now, you can go after Mike Evans, a 31-year-old, but at the same time, a wide receiver in the draft is more likely would happen. Now, it does make an interesting case, right? You got some great receivers in this draft. Zacharias Branch, the transfer USC wide receiver from Georgia, has very much of a great speed. He can run every route tree, and he is a generational weapon for this football team that you can pair up with Devontae Smith, or you can use in gadget wide receiver packages like the slant routes, the jet sweeps. He can do it. I do still think you need another receiver, whether you keep A.J. Brown or not, because you do lose Jahan Dotson in free agency. But let's say you do trade A.J. Brown. Those are two possibility wide receivers you can get. Now, we can talk about trades. It's not likely they're going to get Justin Jefferson. It's not likely they're going to get Jamar Chase, right? Would the Eagles be interested in trading for a wide receiver in a wide receiver trade, right? The Eagles have known to get generational players back. Look at Howie Roseman's draft board. Let's take a look at it. And this is why I trust Howie Roseman. The moves he's made through the season: Devontae Smith, Jordan Davis. Then you get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and Nakobe Dean. Right? Nakobe Dean's a free agent. Then in the 2024, you go get Cooper DeJean, and then you go get you go get Quinion Mitchell, and then you go get Cooper DeJean, two of the best corners in football on his football team. They have been generational all-pro talent. This is not a coincidence. The Eagles have been drafting very well, and this is because Howie Roseman knows talent. Since he's been going after the SEC, he's been nailing every pick. Now, he missed here and there with the Cindy Brown and Keely Ringo, but every pick he's pretty much nailed. And, when you have to think about it, losing A.J. Brown, yes, that's a huge loss. But at the same time, there is wide receivers in the draft that you can draft this year and next year that could come in and take A.J. Brown's place. We got to stop acting like Howie Roseman can't replace A.J. Brown. Now, I've said it all along. Do I think A.J. Brown hurts us? I think that A.J. Brown would hurt us a little bit. But I do think Cordell Tate can come in right away and replace A.J. Brown's production. I do think going out and getting Zacharias Branch, a wide receiver transfer from USC to Georgia, would help a little bit of the production, the loss that you will lose without A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is also a number one receiver. We got to also understand, Devontae's a monster. And I love AJ and Devontae, and I do think Devontae would take a lot of huge, load, from losing AJ Brown. I do think that AJ Brown means a lot to Devontae Smith, but you add Cordell Tate now you gotta pay attention to the speed again. You know, so now you can't win with just Devontae Smith and a bunch of nobodies. You got to go and get that replacement for A.J. Brown. But if I'm in the first round and I see Cordell Tate drop, who had the fastest combine, who's been the generational wide receiver that's been talked about out of Ohio State, you know, him and Jeremiah Smith have been the two that we've been hearing about. I might consider Cordell Tate. I think Cordell Tate, if you lose A.J. Brown, should be your top priority. You know, we're going to talk about the tight ends tomorrow. That's another video. But we got to understand, if A.J. Brown does leave, it's not a over season for us. We still got other options. Yes, it will look different without A.J. Brown, right? We have not seen this offense look without A.J. Brown for a whole year, right? And we're going to be talking about potential, you know, him not being back. So, you know, the best possibility is to keep A.J. Brown. But if you get a first-round pick, man, and he doesn't want to be here, hey, man, it's a business at the end of the day. And we got to put our bias to the side and understand it's not about the player on the back of the jersey. It's about the team logo at the end of the day. Do I love A.J. fucking Brown? Absolutely fucking do. He's a dog. He's a monster. He's a bully. And I like that about him. But we got to understand, if it's time to move on from A.J. Brown and A.J. Brown doesn't want to be here, then bye. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for this business. And I do think Howie Roseman is looking at not just himself, but for what the best for this team. Does A.J. Brown want to be here? That's the question. And we got to decide if he wants to be here. And, you know, if he doesn't want to be here, and like I said, his agent's been saying that, hey, you know, we've been looking at possible trades for him. You know, it doesn't look good for A.J. Brown. It doesn't look good right now. So we got to decide what's best for this football team. And if A.J. Brown don't want to be here, then, you know, you got to go, man. You got to go. You got to go somewhere where you think you're going to be happy. Wish him nothing but the best. But Cordell Tate and Za'Carrius Branch are two guys that I'm very high up on. And I think could definitely replace A.J. Brown's production if you're able to move up. Or let's say you get a number 1 first-round pick. You get a first-round pick this year, you still got 2 first-round picks, right? You can definitely get 2 premier players in the first round, like Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. Great players. Nolan Smith hasn't produced yet, but sure he will eventually. But you got 2 first round. Howie's not afraid, again, to go double in the first round. So we understand Howie Roseman is the best team in football, and we got to trust what he does, man. Let me know what y'all think, man. Flag was fight. I'm out.